Unit 1, Terms to Know. Algorithm. Algorithms are ways of solving problems that are complete and correct, but often time-consuming and resource-intensive. Availability heuristic. A common cognitive heuristic that can result in a bias, availability bias. People tend to make decisions on the basis of the information that they have immediately available in consciousness or that is immediately retrievable from memory. Often this information leads to a correct judgment, but it can also lead to errors that favor information that is recent and/or highly salient. Cognitive resources. An umbrella term for basic cognitive and brain processes like working memory and attention. A thinking task that is said to rely heavily on cognitive resources might be one that involves a lot of concentration, effort, and memory. Cognitive revolution. The cognitive revolution was a period in the middle of the 20th century, 1900s, when experimental psychology transitioned quickly from a scientific approach that emphasized behaviorism and the laws of learning to a scientific approach that emphasized cognition, mental representations, and information processing. Dual process account, also known as dual systems theory. This is a high-level theory that assumes we use two broadly defined systems of thinking. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and relies on brain areas found in many animals. System 2 is slower, more deliberate, language-based, and relies on brain areas that are highly developed in humans. Gestalt approach. This was one of the primary approaches to the study of thinking in the early part of the 20th century, early part of the 1900s. The Gestalt approach emphasized the idea that humans are biased to perceive whole objects rather than parts. Heuristic. A heuristic is a cognitive shortcut and a way to use one's knowledge and familiarity with something to solve a problem or make a judgment. Relative to algorithms, a complete step-by-step way of doing things, heuristics are usually, but not always, correct and result in a faster outcome. Law of proximity. This is an assumption of the Gestalt approach, which states that features or figures that are near each other, proximal, will tend to be perceived as belonging to the same object. Law of similarity. Law of similarity is an assumption of Gestalt theory that states that elements or features in a group of objects are perceived as belonging together if the objects are similar to each other. Mental representation. A mental representation is a stable state of activation within a cognitive neural system that corresponds to an event, object, or idea. Thinking involves creating, processing, and manipulating mental representations. Multitasking. Multitasking is the ability to carry out more than one behavior or cognitive task at the same time. Multitasking usually involves switching between the tasks. Multitasking can be easier if the tasks are cognitively unrelated and do not share many cognitive resources, and more challenging when they share many cognitive resources. Productive thinking. Productive thinking is thinking that generates new ideas, new behaviors, or new conclusions about the world. An example of productive thinking is solving problems by insight. Reproductive thinking. Reproductive thinking is thinking that emphasizes the recall of information from memory. Satisficing. Satisficing is a problem-solving or decision-making heuristic in which the decision-maker seeks to satisfy threshold criteria rather than continue to search for the optimal decision. Symbolic processing. Symbolic processing is the idea that thinking involves manipulating and processing symbols, words, numbers, concepts that correspond to things and ideas in the world. Theory of mind. A theory of mind is the idea that a person can attribute their own mental states, such as thoughts, beliefs, intentions, and desires, to their own independent mind. A person with a developed theory of mind can also attribute the behavior of others to their own thoughts, motivations, and goals that arise from their own independent mind. This ability is crucial for social interaction and is typically present in healthy children and adults, but may be lacking in infants and may also be impaired in certain mental illnesses and psychoses.